All right. Now we get to the episode Lower Decks. The episode of Star Trek The Next Generation that inspired the TV series Star Trek Lower Decks. And has also served as a sort of inspiration for the way people have done many Star Trek themed campaigns playing on Star Trek Adventures. Because let's face it, having the player characters be the lower ranking crew actually makes sense in the context of, having them get sent by a quest giver on a quest. Well, if it's the captain of your ship giving you the quest, you know, it suddenly makes sense that someone's telling you to go do something. So you and the rest of the players get to be an away team taking care of some mission that the captain sent you on. Makes perfect sense. Very logical and all that stuff. And in that regard, all of the characters that end up being the Ursat's main cast for this episode are characters that are designed in a way where I could see them being a recurring character, perhaps a relatively minor one, but a recurring character nonetheless. Ensign Tarek, a Vulcan engineer. So and again, it's just one of those things. It's like a lot of people, when playing Vulcans in Star Trek, want to be like, oh, well, I want to play this guy different than Spock. Well, being different than Spock is as simple as, not directly imitating Spock. So, anyway, this guy, honestly, good character. The fact that he didn't become a recurring character, pity, but hey, whatever. Moving on. Now we have generic human number. I'm not sure which number we're up to. Does remind you a lot of certain other characters we've seen in science fiction, because it's very common archetype for a character. And also exactly the sort of character that you would expect someone to play in a Star Trek Adventures game as one of their player characters. Again, not someone we ever actually saw in more than one episode, but, an interesting character design that you could use in more than one episode. Oh, also, he got to be the operations officer at one point. Yay. Realistically, the list is insane. But let's move on. Because again, we have several. Alyssa Ogawa. This is a character who ends up being part of the crew in Lower Decks, but this is a character who is actually a minor recurring character from, I think the first episode she was in was like in season 1 or season 2. Not someone who is, in all of the episodes, maybe not even all the seasons. I didn't look, but recurring minor character who has shown up several times. But also at this point, she's low enough rank to be, fit in with the lower level, not enlisted, but lower level officers. Anyways, what? Oh, now it loaded. Great. Anyways, human science officer, kind of nerdy. Yeah. Anyway, though, uh, again, this one actually did show up in more than one episode. Lower Decks was the one that he had the most screen time in, apparently, but he did kind of sort of have some presence in other episodes as well. And well, what exactly his relationship with Ogawa is, who knows? I don't care. Anyway, this is actually someone who would not be a player character in this setting. This would be one of the other NPCs who's not a quest giver NPC, but someone you might talk to as part of a side thing. Really? Again. Okay, here we have an NPC who is Also, a side character who's not a player character, not one of the important NPCs, but it's one of the other NPCs. And again, someone who you could visualize being in more than one episode, but he's not. Because you have Guinan working the bar. This guy was the one of the waiters who would carry food to people's tables and stuff. Do do do. Yeah, also, it's like they created Ben because they wanted to have a waiting staff person who wasn't Guinan, because it lets them take the story in a different direction, and logically, the Enterprise has several of them, anyways. And we have someone who they mention in the story and don't really, go over in a whole lot of detail, but it's a character that gets talked about anyways. What I call it important. We'll yeah, sure. We can call it important. And the final person who is a member of the crew for this episode, Sito Jaxa, who is arguably the most important one because she's the one who gets to do the heroic sacrifice thingy, which not a good thing. But also this is a character that actually showed up in more than one episode because she was part of that Starburst nonsense thing, and part of the reason why she does the whole like heroic sacrifice thing is because like she kind of sort of feels guilty about the Starburst thing because one of her fellow cadets got killed in that incident. She Nicholas Locarno, because he took the blame for it, he ended up being the only one to get locked up for it. But Sito Jaxa was certainly not happy about the end result of this matter. Anyways, but wait, there's another tab over here and another character. Yeah, this is one of the plot reasons, because like what happens in this episode is kind of interesting because like you look at the events of the episode from the perspective of the lower crew members, and it's like what's going on. The command staff are doing strange things and acting secretive and so on and so forth, and you eventually find out that the reason the command staff are being secretive is because they don't want the crew of the ship to know that they have a Cardassian on board who is doing secret spy stuff. And Zito Jax's role is to uh, help him uh, physically, that is, impersonate a bounty hunter so that he will have a cover for when he returns to the Cardassian Union, because if he just walks back over the border, it'll be suspicious and people will wonder why and all that stuff. And realistically, this is the sort of character you could introduce in a story and have as a recurring NPC that you run into as part of missions. But that's not what happened in the actual TV show. You could do that because one of the things that the TV show did, and part of the reason why I've been doing this series, is that the TV show would regularly introduce a character or an idea and then forget about it. And these are all things that, if you as a game master wanted to take that ball and run with it, you could. And a Cardassian who is sympathetic to the methodology of the Federation and feels that the Cardassian Union has been going in a poorly chosen direction, a guy like that might actually make a interesting character to have your party running into on a regular basis. Although, it depends on what the nature of your story is, what the nature of your arrangement would be, and all of that stuff. It's like maybe in your timeline, the Cardassians are actually, ostensibly at least, friendly with the Federation, and that his Covertness is perhaps instead because of the fact that his actions are not, directly approved by his superiors. They're just, something that his superiors are kind of not paying attention to. As long as he doesn't, get attention for doing something dumb. Anyway, so that sets the stage. What's the actual events of this episode? Well, like I said, it's mostly the lower decks people doing stuff because they're trying to figure out what's going on. And then eventually they find out Cedo Jackson does her, you know, um, routine. The plan was for her to sneak back to Federation space in a shuttlecraft. That apparently didn't happen. Some of the books related to this tried to elaborate on what happened later, but the actual like official thing leaves both of their fates uncertain. It's like we don't really know anything about what happened with the Cardassian guy. Did his superiors find out that he's a traitor the next day? Maybe. We don't know. And, while people have reason to believe Cedo Jackson was dead, it could be that the Cardassians, having realized that she was faking it, faked her death to make the feds think that she was dead, and then took her off to the secret prison where they download your mind into a computer and stuff. We don't exactly know, but anyways. Yeah, this was a relatively short one because, like, this is one of those things where, a premise, it's a great idea. It doesn't actually have a whole lot of meat on the bones, though, in terms of like the actual like story itself, because it's mostly just people doing people things while trying to figure out what's going on, and it's not particularly heavy in the lore, except for introducing all these new characters, and you get to meet all of these new characters, and that's most of the episode. Well, anyways, it was a fun episode, and it's even more of a fun idea because of the fact that you see people doing things that you wouldn't otherwise see people doing. But also, from a TTRPG standpoint, it gives you an opportunity to, like, hey, what would this character do if this happened, and so on and so forth. Which, playing a TTRPG, doing something that's a change of pace, it's fun. Alrighty then. Well, see you guys later.